11th, regular town council meeting. I will go to the calendar here, and we got Mountain Street Dance on June the 14th and 46th. We got Saturday, June the 22nd, is Community Painting Day at the Pigeon Community Center from 10 to 2. That's the mural, right? Talking about the mural. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to do the mural on the side of the building here. So everyone, please show up for that. We'll give you a paintbrush, for that. And I was saying Tuesday, June 25th, we'll have our regular town council meeting there. And, hope those of you got to join us for our unveiling of our new art. We had close to probably 2,000 people show up for that. It was a very, very historical moment in all of us' life to get to see that to go back up again. That was great. And also this past Saturday, Waynesville Parks and Recreation had their first skate park competition, and they had around 100 kids and adults both show up for that. So there was a good turnout, for that. So if y'all missed a good one there. Okay. Have any public comment tonight? Okay. We'll move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any changes that you're aware of? Okay, if not, I'll ask for a motion that they be approved.
I'll make a motion that the agenda be approved.
Second.
Somebody give me a second. Got a second. Julia, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show like sign.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion. I would like to make a comment though before we pass that, which is that Julia and I interviewed an excellent candidate who's on here to be appointed to the planning board of Lake Yoga, who all of y'all know.
Oh yeah.
And he and his wife own a business in town, and we're very fortunate and lucky to have him. We highly recommend him. And then Anthony and I interviewed Corey Isbell for the Waynesville Housing Authority. He's also very qualified. He's the coordinator of the Haywood Community College Construction Skills and Technology. They are training folks and interacting with all sorts of different agencies in town to train different people in HVAC, construction skills, all that sort of thing. So he'll be an excellent member also.
Okay. Thank you all for doing that.
We enjoyed doing that. So I seconded the motion.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show like sign. Okay. We got a presentation by our Assistant Police Chief, Brandon Gilmore. Are you around, my friend?
While he's walking up, he looked good on the news last night.
Thank you guys for the opportunity tonight. Like always, we like to give recognition to some of our K-9 folks when they do great things. And tonight is a well-deserved award for one of our newest members, the K-9 team, the Lady of the Hour, Miss Chelsea Parton, and her partner K-9 Loki. Mr. Height suggested we bring the dog. Everybody likes the dog, so here he is. You guys have probably seen a posting, maybe from our Facebook post regarding this situation, and he's a little clumsy. As many of you know, we're members of the United States Police K-9 Association. Those are our certifying organization. A lot of times you guys see those folks come into town about every August to certify with their K-9s. They also promote a lot of training for K-9 handlers. We've been a member since 2000 when we first started our K-9 program. So we've had a long-standing relationship with those folks for many years. They offer an opportunity when K-9 handlers do something exceptional. You can enter in what that work was. It's voted on by a board, and they in turn select which ones they consider to be the case to order. So This situation was posted, or this particular incident was posted to our Facebook post many months ago. But because it's in quarters, I had to wait until the first quarter to figure out if she was going to win or not. Well, she was the recipient of the first quarter case of the quarter for our region. I wanted to read you guys a little bit about it just so you could understand, and then I'll explain the significance of it. But on February 8th, 2024, officers from the Waynesville Police Department was dispatched to the area of the rec center in reference to a suspicious male who was suspected to have numerous outstanding felony warrants. Officers arrived and located the suspicious male, but when they called out to him, a foot chase ensued. Officers lost sight of the male as he entered into a dense wooded area and a perimeter was established. Based on the severity of previous criminal charges, the need to apprehend the suspect was paramount. Officer Parton and K-9 Loki responded to the scene where Loki was deployed on the track. This was Officer Parton's and K-9 Loki's first actual deployment for a fleeing suspect since graduating basic K-9 school certifications at the end of December of 2023. Once deployed, K-9 Loki quickly located the track, began tracking towards a wooded area where officers had observed the fleeing suspect had gone. K-9 Loki tracks approximately 300 yards through a walking area track where there had been numerous people in cross tracks prior to deployment. Cross tracks are just other people who we are not trying to track. K-9 Loki went through a very thick underbrush through some briars, which led to the edge of a Richland Creek. Many of you know that's the area near the dump in our old K-9 course. Once at the edge, K-9 Loki began to cast back and forth, which just means he was working the scent back and forth as he was trying to indicate to Officer Parton that he had located somebody fairly close by. He continued down a steep embankment into the river's edge. At that point in time, Officer Parton and Loki descended into the creek. She likes to remind me she's lost her prescription glasses during the moment. The suspect suddenly jumped from underneath a concealed location, started across the creek where he was apprehended. He had numerous felony warrants for possession of firearm by felon, drug warrants, and things of that nature. There was a concern that he had tossed a firearm there, and we spent several hours looking for it with metal detectors in the creek, but it was very cold, and we didn't locate it. So if it's there, it's at the bottom of Richland Creek. So tonight I wanted to recognize Officer Parton and Loki. It's a phenomenal, it sounds very simple, but tracks are really hard. There's a lot of cross tracks people walk. We're geographically challenged as far as perimeters where we can't really contain people very good, so people continue to keep running. So her quick response and the dog's quick ability to locate the track served us well in this particular situation. So not only is she going to be rewarded or given an award, but she was recognized in the USPCA K-9 Courier. It's a nationally recognized magazine, gets sent out throughout the country. There's our logo and there's our story in the magazine. So I wanted to bring that to you guys' attention as well. So tonight, without further ado, certificate of excellence to Officer Chelsea Parton, K-9 Loki.
Thank you, Brady. We also got a presentation on the progress of our waste treatment plant renovation. Mark, Kathy. You bring us good news?
Well, I think so. You're gonna have a presentation.
Just got it loaded for you.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr.
No,
It was on.
the clicker.
Liquor. Oh, okay, there we go.
It'll be hard to get that thing moving without one.
Okay, so anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Heights, for inviting us. Thank you for the council. And I'll be brief because I'm going to bring, this has been a project a long time coming. I think we started this project about 5 years ago. But I think, many will tell you that there's been a lot of progress of late. But, Keith Webb knows more about wastewater. I don't know if that's something that a lot of people don't understand, but it's very important to us. He knows more about wastewater than I'll ever know. So I'm gonna bring Keith up here. He's been, intimately, involved in the project, and he's gonna talk to you about the plant, show you some pictures. And then at the end, I'm gonna tell you about where we are on the financial side. But if you got any questions, now is the time. And so we're gonna show you where we are on the plant. Keith?
As Mark said, this is a project that's been going for a while. I got a few pictures just to show you the progress. We're getting very close. There's been some delays in equipment deliveries, but other than that, things are moving pretty good. So this is the overall picture of the improvements. The project includes a brand new plant headworks, which is a bar screen to remove organics and trash from the flow. Something unique to North Carolina, we've got a new primary treatment system that consists of a screening device which treats the wastewater coming in to a higher level. And the reason we did that is in the future, if we need to expand the plant, if this equipment works like we think it will, based on all the pilot testing, we'll be able to expand the plant to 8 million gallons a day of flow instead of 6 without building additional aeration basins, the biological part. When it comes through there, there's a pump station that pumps it up to the biological process, which is those big round square tanks you see on that picture. We put new diffused air there, and then we have new clarifiers for the final treatment. So the headworks, as I mentioned, consist of 2 new screens, the vortex grit system to remove grit. The reason you move grit, it keeps equipment from wearing out. It's quick and lasts longer. The primary treatment facility, which will reduce the strength of the wastewater, and then it goes into a pump station that pumps that water up into the biological process. The picture on the top left, to give you an idea of the construction, is a picture when they dug the slab to build the headwork. So you can see the amount of dirt and how deep it was that got moved. The picture on the right top is the primary treatment units, those screens that we're putting in, new generators to power the plant if we lose power, and the screens. The headworks right now, structural, everything's about 100% built. The mechanical part, 90 to 100% is in place, ready to be turned on. We're waiting on electrical. Most of the piping's been done. The contractor's telling us we should have the electrical equipment there by the first to middle of November to start up this part of the process. The next part of the project was the biological process. That's the 4 big tanks where the biological part takes place. That work's been completed for the most part. We dewatered each of the 4 tanks, removed a lot of accumulated sludge, which was a change order, but it had to be done. We then put new aeration equipment in those tanks, which mixes the tank and provides better air for the biological process. The new blowers that you see the picture there. This is a picture of the tanks when we dewatered them. The picture on the left shows the accumulated solids and sludge that was in there. The picture on the right shows one of our staff members, the town staff members that got the luxury of getting down in that tank with a skid steer and moving the sludge so we could get it out. And this is the picture on the right shows the diffused air that's in there that mixes the tank and adds air for the biological process. Just about all of that is 100% complete. It's actually been up and running for about 6 months, even the electrical part. So there's some electrical needed, but it's up and running, has been running for about 6 months, and the operators report that it's doing very well. The next part of the project, which they're working on today, is new secondary clarifiers. We negotiated with the low bidder and got the state of North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to agree to allow us to rehab the clarifiers that are there to make them more efficient by raising the walls, putting a new type of sludge removal equipment in them, the chain and flight sludge removal equipment. Most of the concrete's been poured. Those walls have been raised. The new sludge pumps are in, and they're in the process of putting the chain and flight collectors in. Here's some pictures. You'll see the picture on the left is them forming the concrete for the walls that allows the support of the chain and flight collectors. The middle picture shows after that was poured and the form stripped. And the picture on the right is the return and waste sludge pumps. The structural part of the clarifiers is about 95%. The mechanical is somewhere around 50. They're getting ready to start doing that. Most of the piping's been done, and we're waiting on the electrical. The final part of the project was the plant disinfection. That's where we disinfect the wastewater before it gets discharged to the Pigeon River. The project included repurposing the old blower building where the blowers used to be for the biological process and adding storage tanks and switching from chlorine gas to sodium hypochlorite bleach for the disinfection. That equipment's in place, new flow meters. This is a picture of the tank in the building that's been added. We raised the effluent wall in the chlorine contact chamber to get additional detention time to make the disinfection process work better. That picture you see is the slide gate that allows that to happen. Structural is about 95%, mechanical's about 95%, piping's about 80%, and we're waiting on a little bit of electrical. So that part of the project's done. And then one of the bigger parts of the project was rehabbing what we call residual processing. When we treat the wastewater and the biological bugs get nice and fat like me and they settle out, we got to get rid of them. So we got to have the process to get them out. So we rehab the existing belt press, which dewaters that sludge into a cake that is then taken to the landfill for final disposal. We're rehabbing 2 thickener tanks, which thicken it before it goes to the belt press. The belt press has been completely rehabbed. It's been up and running for about 4 months. Seems to be working great. They're making some final tweaks to the chemical feed system. They anticipate starting up the chemical feed system 1st of August. Also included in the project is a septic receiving station. Waynesville takes septic from septic tank haulers in the county where we serve people outside of the town limits that need to have waste disposal. That's the way the septic tank works. So we're putting in a screen to allow that to be screened as it comes into the plant to remove the heavy organics. So that's the end of the presentation. Mark's going to talk about the financial part of where we're at today on the finance. Right now the project is expected to be completed by the 1st of May this coming year.
And hopefully, honestly, we hope it's disappeared on me. There we go. That's the belt filter press, the new rollers installed. Keith was talking about where they retrofitted that. And the residuals processing, again, it's mostly complete, still waiting on some electrical on some of those items. As far as project budget, if everyone recalls, this, again, project started in 2019. Original bid price was $28,440,000. That was just a wee bit over budget. Like everything post-COVID, it seems. But we did, proceed with the value engineering process with Harper. And we were able to get that awarded bid price, which this council awarded, back in July of 23, I believe. But the notice to proceed didn't come in March later. But that bid price was 25.7 million or 25,725. Current, contract amount as soon as they started change order one, we found some sludge and some concrete that had to be demolished, some significant things on site, but it's gonna happen with a site that's 60 years old and when nobody here that knows anything about that at the time that was created. So, that was the first surprise. But then at that change order, we had with a few other items, but then we had several items with the sludge pump stations for work change directive 2 and 3, and those combined right now are 475,000. That puts us at a new contract as of today of 26,500,524.44. The original contingency of 1.286 million, along with those change orders, proposed change orders, which still have to be executed, but the work is largely underway. That gives a remaining contingency of $510,725. Now, that being said, we're not complete, but we feel like, uncovered all of those sins of the past relative to this wastewater plant. And we think we found a solution for most of those. So we're feeling pretty good about those. There's always going to be something, whether it's a jump switch or something that happened years ago that has to be corrected for warranty items or something else. We expect something, but we don't expect the major items that we've found so far to creep back in. So the other items that we did meet and talk to Rob about, but wanted to make everyone aware. All of these items, for instance, like the sludge we found, and then the influent lines to the headworks, those were we were concerned about those being too close to the some of those lines being in the shape that they were, that we had to move those. We had to flip the pump station. First thing we had to do is redesign the pump station. We had to mirror the pump station in order for it to work. Between that and the extension of the contract time of 225 days of the original 550 days, we do expect to run short on construction funds for McGill Associates, just due to the time and the redesign we've been out there. But just, that's basically the contract's extended 40%. We estimate from a low to a high of that to be somewhere between 195 and $312,000. So again, right now, we're still looking good with contingencies, and we're not coming to you with an increase, probably will in a few months. After we understand exactly where we are, how much money we think we need, we'll be coming and asking for a maximum or a projected increase of what our services will be. So, does anybody have any questions about any of it?
Chuck, do you have any idea whether there will be a difference between our current energy usage, electricity based, old plant versus new plant?
I do not. Do you?
If there is any, it would be slightly less because the blowers are more efficient, the old blowers, but it won't be significant.
Thank you.
Just so I understand, you are saying that it's probably going to cost a little more than we anticipated, and your estimate is on the low end 195 and on the high end 312. Is that right?
Correct. Right now, we have contingency money that would cover that, and so the original project budget would still cover that.
Okay.
That
So-
would be the amount of the contingency that's left over when the plan is complete.
So
No.
overall, you'll probably be about $100,000 under the 28,440,000.
That's-
Yes,
that's
depending
what I
on
was
how,
gonna say.
what the outcome is, correct.
Did you say your current final completion date is somewhere in May of 2025?
Correct.
Most of these other, but it's going to phase on, is that correct? Like some of this will be coming on board before.
Some of it will definitely be started up before then. I really expect, I mean, of course, any contractor, as I would too, in their shoes, are gonna ask for additional time when anything changes on the project. It's just the way it works. Anyone knows that construction projects, it's justified. However, they want to get it done as quick as possible. So I believe that, and along the way, we've looked at options on how to increase or how to maybe possibly change equipment based on delivery of equipment and lead time. It's just not turned fruitful. Hopefully we'll have this thing started in November and it'll be running long before May of 25. That's the substantial completion date.
Any further question?
Delay in the project isn't bulldozers pushing dirt or
No.
folks pouring concrete. We've been waiting on specialized electric equipment to be built and delivered, and they were ordered today. We signed the contract.
Yes.
So
They're
you said
18
most of
months.
that's gonna start coming in November.
Oh, that's when everything should be here in November. But again, I would encourage you to go take a look. It's a different place. It's really quite impressive. It's a nice facility.
Put your hard hat on.
Yes, put your hard hat on and your safety vest.
In your comments.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank all of you.
Okay. Move to payment conditions and survey. John?
Well, at the outset, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity, council members, managers, as well as the citizens of Waynesville for the opportunity. We've been very fortunate to provide this similar payment condition survey to the town of Waynesville for 4 different times. And so certainly appreciate the repeat business. And it appears to me, just being here now, this is kind of engineering night at council meeting. I was pretty intrigued with what was going on there. I'm not sure anybody else was really excited about it, but just at the outset, it encourages me that a body like yours is that serious about infrastructure. It's what I do. That's what McGill does. And again, it's just like a house. It's just like a car. You got to maintain it and kind of putting those financial resources to that type situation. So with that, we had worked with Jeff Steins, your Public Works Director, in doing your pavement condition survey. Basically, this is an assessment of your asphalt surface roads throughout the town of Waynesville. We look at the roads, assess them, and then come back with you with a rating system. And also based on those distresses and the rates, we make some recommendations. And with that, there we go. Okay. Just real quick, and I will try to be brief, but at the same time, I would encourage, if you do have a question, please just stop me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions along the way. But in essence, Waynesville has approximately a little short of 88 miles of roads in your road system. We completed your survey back in April. That data collection, we look at 8 different pavement distresses. We'll look at that a little bit more in detail in just a second. While we're out there, we also grab some additional information. We'll also look at that. Once we've gathered the data, we go through a post-processing of that data. And the last time I made this presentation, I looked up and said PCR. It means something to me. It probably doesn't mean anything to you, and I apologize for that. That stands for pavement condition rating. And that's really how that street rates and what kind of condition it is. And again, based on that rating, we'll look at various different maintenance activities that would be recommended for those street segments. Just real quick, and I apologize, this is a fairly busy slide, but this kind of references a study that was done several years ago by AASHTO. But when they kind of looked at the street system throughout the country, they kind of came up with a dollar value for it. And at that point in time, as you can see, I apologize. There was about $31 per square yard based on inflation, and those factors were about $40 a square yard. And you can see it's a little over 1 million square yards of streets in Waynesville. And that puts that roadway asset at about 42 million. Not sure what the wastewater plant is valued at, but obviously your road system is one of your largest assets as well. And so my main point tonight is please maintain it, because it's a big asset and a very valuable one. Just real quick, and as I promised, we'll kind of look quickly. These are 4 of the 8 distresses that we look at. The top one up on the left-hand side there, alligator cracking, basically is the most severe distress that you will have. Reason for that, alligator cracking is a underlying foundation issue. That's when the base material under the asphalt is failing and beginning to kind of sink and crumble. And so that's what is reflected through the actual top of the asphalt. Second one is block cracking. Block cracking, again, not a foundation, but it really has to do more with traffic on the pavement, and in particular, the expansion and contraction of the pavement is going to tend to crack, and those block cracks are kind of what you see. Reflective cracking primarily is going to be a situation to where, and probably I don't think we have that much in Waynesville, where you have overlaid or resurfaced an old concrete road, and those joints in the concrete kind of reflect up through that asphalt. I don't think you have really a whole lot of that in Waynesville. Raveling is, again, just when the street gets older, a lot of that liquid asphalt kind of has dried out and evaporated, and you have a lot more gravel, and so it kind of becomes a very rough riding type road at that. The last 4 is going to be a rutting distress. Again, this is going to kind of be somewhat of a foundation issue under the asphalt. Routinely, you're going to see these at intersections, and particularly where you have either a lot of truck traffic, bus traffic. Again, you've got some heavier vehicles at that intersection that are stopping. Patching is another one. Again, it's unfortunate that a lot of the utilities in Waynesville, as with any municipality, are in the roadway, whether it be water line, sewer line, cable, and in many cases to repair those, you have to go in and make an asphalt patch and get back in there. And unfortunately, as you can see here, when you do that, it kind of compromises the pavement because you're having to go in and cut it out and replace it. Bleeding down there is not as common with the improvements in asphalt through the years. It's kind of when that liquid asphalt kind of bubbles up to the top. Really not too much of a common distress nowadays. Ride quality is going to be just how smooth or rough that street is riding. Again, very busy slide. I don't intend to kind of belabor this too much, but of those 8 distresses that we just kind of detailed, this kind of goes in and looks at each one of those distresses in the town of Waynesville. At the top, you've got the alligator cracking, and you can kind of see we do both. The street system is broken down into low volume and high volume streets, and then the severity of the distress from a light, medium, and severe situation. So that's really kind of the breakdown there, and you can kind of see where some of those distresses fall, within the town of Waynesville. Really kind of getting back to, as we talked about additional attributes, we do look at the number of lanes, and in particular, what we try to pick up or what we pick up is your location of sidewalk, other assets that the town owns, as well as where you've got existing curb and gutter. And also we look carefully at the asphalt height at that gutter. And one of the reasons for that is that as you overlay a road, the asphalt height tends to build up. And again, if you're not doing anything in the gutter, which you're normally not, there gets to be somewhat of a trip hazard there. And I know a lot of municipalities, I'm from Greensboro, I know Greensboro has been guilty of it, of actually paving into the gutter. I would ask that you not do that. It does many bad things. Number one, it compromises your drainage capability of the gutter and do those things. So I would ask that you kind of do a milling and get rid of some of the asphalt before you start paving into the gutter. Just real quick, again, with the rating system, these are the 8 distresses, along with the severity of those distresses. And it pretty much, again, I'm an engineer, it's a math equation. And we take each street starts at 100. And as we look at those distresses and the severity, we start doing deducts through there and everything else. I will go ahead and answer the question before it's asked, because I've been asked before. No, we do not get into negative numbers. We stop at zero. And I'm pretty sure, Jeff, this is right. We didn't have anything that was a zero. So we had some low ones, but I don't think we had anything that was a zero. We might have, I think we maybe have one small short segment. We have one short segment. So, but with that and kind of the punchline, that pavement condition rating, 82.9. You can look down there for the municipalities that we've been involved with through the years. The municipal average is about 78. And so obviously what that is that your system is a little bit above average and compared to the other municipalities throughout the state. And it also puts that 82.9, puts you in a good category as far as your overall street rating system. We also look at the amount of your street system that needs repair. You got a little short of about 55%. In that case, you're a little bit above average there. 48%, not too much different, is the kind of North Carolina municipal average. So a little bit higher on those streets needing maintenance than average. Just real quick, and what that translates into, it translates into a big number. I'm glad McGill went before I did so that they could give you a bigger number, but it's a big number. But what that number represents is that if you decided to make all the improvements that we found you had defects in today, and that's not a financial reality. And so I know that, so I don't want you to kind of say that's what you need to spend. That's a big number, but as you kind of get into it, at least make allocations on an annual basis to kind of keep that roadway asset up to speed. As we look at it, we kind of break it down into routine maintenance, which is, as you can see, kind of the primary category here, as opposed to the resurfacing. And part of this too is just to kind of caution you as you get into resurfacing, as you raise structures, as you do milling, some of those other operations, there are some additional costs. So this is just kind of the repairs themselves. Any type of other types of ancillary services would be in addition to that. This is just wanted to kind of show you that, again, the history. We've had the opportunity to do this 4 different times. And these are kind of the categories starting off from very good all the way down to poor. What struck me and what I wanted to do is take my hat off to you and Jeff in particular. As you can see, the trend is that your very good streets, you're getting more and more each time we do this. And likewise, if you look all the way to the right-hand side, that poor category is also decreasing systematically. Everything in between is kind of a little bit of a mix, but obviously you're trending in the right direction, getting more streets in that very good category and much less in the poor category. This again kind of just as a summation of that overall PCR rating. You can see it's kind of hovered around the same thing, that 82 region, and then up to as far as 84 back in 2015. Down at the bottom of the graph, you can see the percentage of streets that are not needing maintenance type thing. And again, that's kind of fluctuated again, somewhat bouncing around that 50% on average. Again, this is just a typical deterioration curve. Pavement, just like anything else, is subjected to weather, is subjected to traffic. It does deteriorate. And this is just kind of, as it starts at 100, over a number of years, it does begin to deteriorate. That rating goes down. And this just kind of shows that if you can catch it in an early stage, before it gets to be about a 60 or so, and do some preventative measures, you can actually save quite a bit of money. In doing that, once it kind of gets on the bottom third of that graph, you end up spending a whole lot more money, basically almost reconstructing the street at that point. So again, trying to do as much on the front end as possible as far as preventative measures are concerned. With that, this is for some reason one of my favorite slides. The town limit, if you want to say, or the jurisdiction line, is actually the center line of the street. I'm not exactly sure where the street is located. But with that being the jurisdiction line, the jurisdiction at the top of it actually went in and did what's called crack sealing. There was a crack there. It obviously was all the way across, probably maybe from some type of utility. They chose to crack seal it. The jurisdiction closest to you did not. And you can see the difference there. Even just in doing something as simple as crack sealing, it does maintain the integrity of the pavement and primarily just keeps the water out, which is one of your primary reasons. And so as you can see now, the jurisdiction closest to you is now going to have to spend quite a bit more money to get in and repair that. So it's again, just a stark example of trying to do things as early as possible in the maintenance process. You won't want to, again, looking at the various different distresses, Jeff and I kind of worked through various different maintenance activities. These are pretty standard throughout North Carolina, so we can look at those in any level of detail. But with that, also work with Jeff to come up with just the unit cost of those types of maintenance activities. And when you kind of combined all that, you get a big engineer's delight of a very complicated table. But what that is just a summation, and it does look at all the different maintenance activities, low volume, high volume, total of the streets, and that where it kind of comes down and gives you that total of a little over $2 million that we kind of talked about. Again, just real quickly, provides you with a kind of a summation of those the finances over those 4 different surveys that we've done, kind of a breakdown between routine maintenance and resurfacing. And again, you can kind of see, and I would agree, for some reason, the same thing that the gentleman from McGill indicated, post-COVID, and a lot of it had to do with supply chain and everything else, but post-COVID, paving costs, just like a lot of everything else, really skyrocketed.
Can I ask you a quick
Yes, sir.
question on that? If you will go back to the slide. So if I look at that slide and I see that the amount of routine maintenance, the total cost for the routine maintenance and resurfacing and the total, it's increasing. Is that a reflection of the fact that we're just behind, or is there price increases, inflation built into why that number is increasing?
I think primarily if we kind of go back to one of those previous slides where we looked at particularly the rating, and your rating has kind of hovered around that 82, 84, so you're maintaining the kind of the overall integrity of your street system. I would say that primarily those cost increases are inflation, cost of asphalt, manpower, and those types of things primarily. You probably are holding pretty much as far as the street system, but the cost of doing business just keeps increasing.
But our breakdown of streets were actually greatly improving over the years. If I've read the one graph correctly, and our very poor has gone significantly down from 6.1% to 3.3%.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
On another previous slide that you had to talk about what John is talking about, our very poor streets have diminished greatly from 6.1% to 3.3%.
Right.
Our poor from 9.1 to 7.6. So our roads are improving.
Correct. They are improving, but again, and so with that, but again, it speaks to just the cost of particular asphalt. And again, I like you probably, I read an article this week that basically referred to the change in the price of gasoline. And I'd never have, I mean, it changes, it used to change on a weekly basis. I think it's almost a daily basis now. And I never have quite figured all that out. So, but.
Well, with that, we have cheaper gas now than we did 6 years ago.
We did. I'm not saying. I'm very
I just want to make that a
thankful for
very clear point of people who say that gas prices dramatically in the last 4 years, they have not.
Right. Just real quick, this kind of is again just a distribution, kind of looking at where you have no repair. Again, you've got about half of your street system that doesn't need any repair at all, which is great news. And you can look at here, and obviously that full depth patching is the repair of that alligator cracking, which is an expensive repair. And you can see, and that falls into routine maintenance. And so that's why your routine maintenance number is much higher than your resurfacing number, because of that full depth patching need. This simply just kind of breaks that down. Again, you can see the lion's share of it is in that full depth patching to address that, the alligator crack. And obviously we talked about you don't have it. And so what we have worked with and provided Jeff is kind of prioritizing that. Obviously, even in prioritizing it, we look at routine maintenance with that patching, the full depth patching is part of it. So a lot of the overall cost does fall into that top priority type situation.
Is, when you use the term full depth patching, is that grinding the surface and then putting new asphalt?
It actually is much more invasive than that. It actually is basically going in and cutting out that area and excavating down probably about 6 inches or so, because it's really the foundation, the stone that's under there, that's the rubble, and replacing all that stone, properly compacting that, and then coming back with the asphalt on top of that. So that's why it costs so much, because it's a very aggressive repair. And so yes, it involves actually removing the pavement section and putting in a brand new pavement.
So if you go back 2 slides. Yeah. So 46.4% of our streets need that kind of attention.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the distresses, you do have a lot of roads with alligator cracking. And that has a tendency to do with, again, a lot of the moisture in the mountains and stuff. And the worst thing for pavement is going to be moisture type thing. And so, yes, I mean, you do have kind of quite a bit of the alligator cracking.
So the it would be correct to say 46.4% of our streets have alligator cracking, and the fix for that is full depth patching, correct?
I did not see that. I see on the, we got 8.9% of our mileage has alligator cracking.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it's, yeah. I mean,
But the 7.38% of that is low volume. Only 0.37 is high volume miles.
Okay.
right. Yeah. I mean, so it really kind of just looks, it's, when you look, I mean, alligator cracking is not for the, I mean, for the entire run of the street. It's really kind of locations of 10 feet here, 10 feet there.
Okay.
So when we say that, and so yes, exactly, we're saying, yes, you have some of it, but it may only be like 10% of that entire road.
Okay.
But it kind of falls into that category.
Okay. Okay.
Somewhat misleading, but a great.
It's also indicative of our terrain and our moisture and natural springs. And
Correct. I mean, again, moisture is going to be the worst enemy of pavement. It gets up under.
is there technological advances that would help with that from when we repave going forward? That's over the last 10 or 15 years. Has there been better methods of eliminating that from occurring in the future?
Not necessarily. Well, one of the things that we're actively doing with the council and Hilliard right now is they're somewhat of a similar situation. Many of their roads have a lot of the alligator cracking. And so what we're doing, instead of actually going in and patching all of that, what we're trying to use is a material called fiber mat, which is kind of a surface overlay, a very thin overlay that kind of bridges over a lot of the alligator cracking, and it will come back in with that 1.5 inch overlay. And so, yeah, we're actually looking to do that. And so that may be something folks look at as far as the fiber mat, instead of doing all that extensive patching, kind of using a fiber mat and then overlaying it with that type of technology.
It's expensive as well.
Yeah.
But
Everything's expensive.
What he's talking about.
Just real quick, again, as we kind of started out, a big asset, just would encourage, and I think this council has done a great job of making those allocations. One of the kind of the bars that we look at, average asphalt street, kind of the optimum life is 15 years. And so you're looking at repaving a street potentially every 15 years. That gets you into repaving just shortly less than 6 miles a year. With the numbers that we have in there, that's about $1 million. And so that's kind of somewhat of a bar to shoot for as far as allocations type situation, and trying to be able to maintain that 15-year cycle type thing. Again, I can tell you about Greensboro. At the point that I was down there, yes, our paving cycle was lower. If you can do anything between 15 and 100, you're doing very well. So, just real quick, again, we talked about that. Asphalt does deteriorate. Being aware of it, as Jeff and his folks very much are, trying to preserve that. And again, it is a very large asset, and I certainly appreciate you folks being serious about it and looking to maintain that. And I'm more than happy to entertain any further questions.
You don't want to have any further?
We have a recommended paving schedule in front of us. Is it something you worked on?
I think that's primary. It's basically kind of Jeff had taken our information and kind of looked at those streets, and so I think either Jeff and or I will be more. Got any questions?
I was just wondering how you balance repaving as opposed to maintenance. How we figure how much we need to spend on maintenance, how much we need to spend on repaving.
That's a balancing act, and I won't. I'm not going to put words in Jeff's mouth, or if you feel comfortable addressing that.
Yeah, so depend on the street, you can do this a little bit, add it in house. I haven't looked at the street. That's where I got the little bit
So our PAL bill is 400,000, something like that. And how much more money do we spend for paving each year, or patching or maintenance? I tried to find it in the budget, but I couldn't.
It's pretty much a daily operation. We do a daily street front, water, so I can get you the number.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much we're spending each year on maintenance and paving.
And you also look at the volume on the road and the impact it would have, and you do higher volume roads have a priority.
We have I remember one road, and his birthday, so I feel like that money would be better somewhere else. Not taking away from those folks, but the roads are decent.
I think they made a suggestion that we repave 5,969 feet of road, which is a little over a mile and a quarter.
Any further questions?
What's on that?
Not on the recommendation.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks. Again, certainly appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
We'll have another presentation. Town bracelets. Brandon Gilmore is going to give us an update on these town bracelets.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you on this topic. I handed out packets. I guess you guys will probably see there. You got Jesse's on it as far as the PowerPoint presentation. I'm not going to belabor and talk a lot about it. I did want to talk a little bit about the history of cam bracelets, how it began, and then talk about obviously funding of that is where we're going. The cam bracelets became a bill introduced in 2012, approving it for pretrial. In essence, for pretrial alcohol monitoring, dubbed the name CAM, continuous alcohol monitoring device. In essence, what that means is we can put those devices on someone who's been arrested. Further into the PowerPoint, we can, I'll talk to you about the pre-qualifications or the ones that we selected or felt like were high priority to put a CAM bracelet on. But it is a alcohol monitoring device that can be put on someone, and if they continue to drink after arrest, it will then notify the provider, who will then notify the district attorney and ultimately revoke somebody's bond for violating conditions of release. The first court order that ordered a cam bracelet from court was actually here in Haywood County in 2012 with a death. It was August 2012 with the death, a wreck situation of a death on South Main, right at the Time Out Market many years ago. So they've been in existence for quite some time. However, from 2012 to 2023, they was not utilized very much and put on because of the costs associated to the offender. They run about $12 a day for issuance, and obviously someone's got to pay for that. And oftentimes, the people who are committing these crimes can't afford, quite honestly, to pay for that type of continued expense. So in 2023, what was the change was, as you guys have noticed, Ellen is here today with DWI Task Force. With a lot of persistence from her through the Governor's Highway Safety, they performed a grant or a pilot program for a grant to fund cam bracelets for a period of 1 year. That grant was utilized for all 7 counties, so including Haywood and further west. And as you can see on the next slide, I'm supposed to be changing here. They thought Jesse had me. You got a click right there. There we go. The Governor's Highway Safety Program, it was a 99% success rate. The only person that violated any of the court orders was actually not in Haywood County, it was in Macon County. But there was 53 total cam bracelets placed on during this time frame. Over 50% of those was put on by officers from the Waynesville Police Department. Since October 2023, the funding for that program has since passed, which ultimately means not many cam bracelets are being put on again. Why I support cam or pretrial cam bracelets is very obvious. As many of you know, the interlock system is part of a condition of, but it's a post conviction condition. And to be right honest, it's an antiquated device. It can be defeated. As Ellen often says, it gets the car sober, but it doesn't mean the driver is, which is a lot of truth to that. The cam bracelet's put on, so it's going to keep your driver sober. So in supporting the cam bracelet, the sobriety aspect of it, it keeps the person working, it keeps them supporting their family. It lets their employer know that ultimately they're sober while they're showing up for work. And most importantly, the two things is they're not in jail and they're not repeat offending and potentially killing other people due to their alcoholism. I did get some stats just related to cost. Someone in Haywood County Jail, it's about $90 a day. 30 days in jail is $2,700. Cam bracelet, $12 a day. 30 days in jail is $360. So it's about a $2,340 savings to tax, keeping someone out of jail and keeping somebody working. The process moving forward, as you can see, DWI crashes, these are the things that we have identified through the pilot program through the Governor's Highway Safety as things that we want to incorporate putting cam bracelets on. We did add one to that, and it's the very last one. But DWI crashes with deaths, with serious injuries, repeat offenders, 3 or more, 10 years arrests involving DWI charges, 1 or more pending DWI charges, DWIs with children in the car, and lastly, we added domestic violence offenders where alcohol is a contributing factor. We have personal experience with that, with things escalate when impairment comes in. So we have had a lot of good feedback from those that we've ordered those or asked those to be put on people. The violence towards the female or the abuse towards the female tends to diminish because the person's sober. How the process technically works, the magistrate would order it. They would have a certain amount of time to become in compliance. I did ask the provider of the cam bracelet to come today in case you guys had some questions specific to the cam bracelet. As you can see, there's a little picture of it. It's an ankle monitor. There is some new technology out that we actually had a phone conversation with the provider recently this past week. that has technology where it comes through your watch. So you can actually wear like a watch. It actually works like a watch, looks like an little Apple iWatch that will monitor through your wrist. Once it's been ordered to be put on, they'll have a certain amount of time to come in compliance. If they don't come in compliance, obviously that gets reported back to the district attorney. If they violate at any point in time, the district attorney is made aware of that, ultimately revoking their pretrial conditions of release. And how it all gets paid for, as many of you know, funding through the ABC money comes in. A certain percentage of that's been slotted for alcohol education, rehabilitation, and we felt very passionate about that here at the police department. This is a device that undoubtedly changes lives, saves lives, and could not be a better resource for money for rehabilitation. So without further ado, any questions from me?
Anyone have further questions?
I think it's a great idea. The county is the entity that would save a lot of money. Are they doing anything?
So to answer your question, myself and Miss Ellen went and presented this project to the county as of last year, and I do not think they funded it. We're only asking specific for Waynesville officers. I did forget to leave that out. We're not asking for a Canton officer, a Waynesville officer, or a Maggie officer, sheriff's office. So if a Waynesville police officer arrests someone that meets those qualifications, we could recommend it as a pretrial condition, and then ultimately the funding that's paid through ABC money would go back into supporting that program. It wouldn't be for all law enforcement.
Is there some sort of a sliding scale for the defendants or the offenders, so they're not paying anything at all?
They would not be paying anything at all. Like I said, we are recommending at least a 90-day wearing of the CAM bracelet. However, statistics through drug courts, which you guys know we have one currently up and running. We met with the district attorney, or Judge Vijay Wickrama just as of yesterday, and kind of got an update on how that court's running. But Buncombe County's been utilizing these for quite some time and have a lot of success stories with the use of CAM, up to including 120 days. So you get somebody past 90 to 120 days of sobriety, life changes tend to occur in their life, and they feel like they can make a lot of headway with their addiction at that point in time.
Wow. It sounds great. I'm still shaking my head, thinking why the county wouldn't want to save $2,300 a month per offender.
I'm not real sure. I can't answer. That's just a hypothetical question. I understand.
It's a rhetorical.
Right, yes, sir. We just recognize that the monies from the ABC would be a sure fit for funding such a successful project. It's a proven successful project.
The county also gets ABC money.
I would assume so. I'm not sure where all the ABCs are at.
I'm done talking.
So I couldn't ask you that either. I'm just here for Wayne.
But I do think it's a great idea.
It is. It's a great idea. That's what that money's for. You know, ABC, of course, goes for.
If you guys have any questions, Doug here's the provider that has provided in the past through the Governor's Highway Safety Program. I asked him to come tonight if you guys had any questions, want to see the CAM bracelet. And obviously, Ellen's been very instrumental in getting this thing pushed through for the grant and pilot program and pushing for CAM. So we're excited about the opportunity, at least to provide it to our officers and to our community as a means of sobriety and moving forward their life.
Keep Waynesville safe. Correct. Okay.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for always investing in the training and professional development of the Waynesville police officers. You've helped them, as you see, become visionary leaders, and they're extraordinary members of our task force. They have great ideas. They're always supporting the right things. So we ask you to join them And once again, light the way for others in the use of technology. You can use technology to prevent crime, to protect the innocent, and to permanently change criminal behavior. This is proven. We had a 99% success rate over a year over all 7 counties. And so none of this, if you use those funds he's talking about, will come at any cost to the taxpayers. The drinking people who purchase alcohol, that's who will be paying for this endeavor. So when we have the chance to prevent instead of punish, I think we ought to take it. So thank you, and I'll turn this over to Doug.
So as it's been said already, this device is, and I personally have been running it for almost 2 years. I am 99% successful. I cannot be. It takes 3 readings, different a day. The exhaust port's right here in the back that goes against your skin. Read your sweat. It takes 48 to 52 samples a day. The client that wears it does not know when it's conditioned. With that data, it gets uploaded to this stays in the home of the client. I have several of these that hook up different ways. We have so this does a DNA sample, an infrared light sample, and also fiber optic. So you cannot move this on your ankle without me getting. As soon as I get alert, I call the client. The client and the agreement that they sign is to show me 3 pictures of the device for every tamper alert they have, proving that they have not missed. Once I confirm the pictures, I turn the alert off, add notes in, and I send all reports to DA's office, attorneys, and whoever else. Every month, I compile the data, I send a report. The monitoring company, Scram, is the one who analyzes the positive result on the alcohol. Now, this thing is so sensitive, it will pick up hand sanitizer put on your hand 2 days ago. So we have a mathematical equation that uses the liver, the body size, mass, filtration rate, determine those false positives. So if I send you a report and it has a positive on there for the client, it does not mean the client had actual alcohol. An actual alcohol event will be logged as a non-compliance event. You'll get that in the description down to the second of that client had alcohol.
Do you sell the devices or do you rent them?
So I lease the device from a company. So what I'm charging a client, which this device I'm holding is $12 a day, I'm paying $6.
So we don't buy the units. We
lease the
pay the daily fee.
Yes.
right.
And
For
in
whatever
some
period of
cases,
time.
and in some cases, the offender, of course, pays that fee.
Currently, the offender has to pay if we put it on. But
I think one important thing we've got to is that when people do this pre-trial, they get credit for this video sentence.
Yes.
They get their credit for doing this. So that's so important.
9 times out of 10, when a magistrate orders this, I see 120 days on cam, and then it's bumped all the way down to 7 days in jail. So the client can wear their cam and do their 7 days in jail on weekends. So the client is now not looking at how much this is going to cost me, but hey, if I do this, I've got less time in jail, I'm out quicker. So having that option for the client to relieve that stress would be huge. So that's why, this is a great program for this to take off.
Plus it's getting them sober for 90 days, which gives
Exactly.
them a better chance of staying
Way
sober.
better, yeah. When they approached me and they asked me what would be the best time frame, because a lot, sometimes I see 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. I'm sorry, nothing is really going to change in 30 or 60 days. You're going to do what you need to do to get through it, and then, hey, I can celebrate. I've seen it 100 times. That 90 to 120 day mark, I don't want that anymore. I don't need it. I see I can get a life without.
So you have a way higher success rate than that, right?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was good. Okay. Move on. Okay, we have a public hearing.
Mayor, can we take just a 5 minute, please?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we're gonna take a 5 minute break and recess back here in 5 minutes. Thank you, sir. Got to drink the water. Thank you. Seems like.
They're so funny.
Sure. No, there's no legislative reason. So many people said anything, I don't know what the hell to say. I said, so many people have talked, I don't, y'all taking all my time up. I mean, I don't understand. I would think that was something that should cool off or something. Hey. Yeah, it's strange. We would pay our ABC money, so somebody else stay up. I mean, to me, if I had a job, $300 necessary, I pay $12 to make $300 rather than pay for 3 months. I take $12, but we're gonna pay our ABC rate, so that reward. They should be provided reports. That paper thing there, I seen, like what got on the list for this. Those are the streets, about $200,000. That's about $200,000 worth of streets. This is. Yeah. We wanted to show you so that you could say, oh yeah, I know that street. Because, every year we say, okay, here's the contract, and somebody will say, there's nothing wrong with that street. Why are you paving it? So we thought we'd show you early. Yeah. Yeah, we looked at it last year. It's off the website. According to the mayor, that complained about speeding. Well, I guess he gets public comment. Did anybody give you a call about how you go about speed breakers and all that? Been drilled about that there lately. We had a question of the procedure where you have to do that. It's just that this don't happen. No. Yeah. Well, we're at the end of the budget year. Right, so I mean, it'll review.
I got a feeling that's they really haven't talked here for a long time. They've talked. Yeah. Sure. I like it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have them reject it. Just say, I don't want any of the bidders to come back.
Yes.
Then we just start the process again.
I mean, I don't know, that's not what the system is. Let me ask him.
You know, the Robert Fisher page. It's on our police officer. 40 years ago.
But there's.
Yeah, you have to have a hold of the budget. Yes. Yeah, I'll make sure he does.
Okay, good.
You gotta get up and go back to work.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do that too. The presentation happens inside the
The roads are great. We just didn't pay it back. Yeah. Out of one of those rich entitlements.
Well, they harassed them. You should tell the chief to go
Well, I'll tell
there.
you what, I just put it to court, got out. Look at that work they're doing on the city's programs.
Yeah.
They like going to put the trees in, go all the way around it was free.
I think they're gonna put a right.
No, I'm not. I don't have much left in the tank either.
He's gonna use what's called tree grade or whether use some
Yeah, that's a company, yeah. That way it's water.
500,000.
What kind of tree is it?
we're gonna get another.
I haven't even been out. She's been asking me about trees. I believe that's the tree. I'm already. Well.
If there aren't any other construction expenses. Yeah.
Streets and states from our. If you plant a 3-inch caliber tree, it needs tall enough so people can see in the windows of the store. Yeah. And if you plant some little short squat thing and wait 25 years, the shop will say, nobody can look in my window that's my street. So we deliberately bought a more expensive tree that you can see from your car window. You won't have any markings. That's the reason they're saying this.
That's next week.
After that,
Yeah, I'm not gonna have it right now.
You
Because I gotta
got to
talk.
tell, okay,
Yeah, I might
I just
show
see you. Yeah, and then you say.
what I gotta talk about is gonna make y'all choke anyway. So that's right. I can figure out how to make this short.
Is this the public way?
Yeah. It's a public hearing.
Okay.
Go back.
No. It's just, it's not. That's one thing. Is everybody back?
Okay. Okay, we'll continue.
Mr. Mayor, I move we open the public hearing on the 24-25 budget for the county.
Okay, got a motion to open.
I'll second.
Got a second by Anthony. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, show like sign. Okay, Mr. Town Manager, you're on the hot seat.
I'm gonna try to make this a little quicker than I intended, because we've had quite a few presentations. Since this is a public hearing and we have folks watching on, I'm going to give you a little background that is different than my budget message. So let's start out here. Ready, Jesse? Here. All right.
Yeah, there's a.
Okay. Your 24-25 budget totals $38,069,700. And this is the last time we'll talk about the budget as a total. Town board actually sits as the board of directors of 5 separate businesses. We keep a separate set of books for every one of the fund: general, water, sewer, electric, stormwater. So the only time we talk about a $38 million budget is during the budget public hearing.
The mouse has disappeared.
They probably ran out of batteries.
Okay.
All right, you happy?
If it's not working, you point it back. You're pressing the wait.
All right, here we go. Let's talk about the general fund. Let me mention that the total budget of 38 million is only 3% higher than it was last year. But let's talk about the general fund, because this is the fund that the public talks about the most. One thing that the public here talks about is what do I get for my taxes? What do I get for my taxes? Well, taxes only make up 46% of your general fund. 25% of the fund is sales tax, and that's one reason we have a very healthy tourist economy, because our sales tax and our property tax make up about 78% of our general fund.
So without those tourists, we would be paying about 25%.
That's right. They're worth 4 or 5 cents on the tax rate. The other thing that I'd like to point out is what do I get for my taxes? Well, if you'll look at just police and fire, they make up 49% of the general fund. If you include public works, sanitation, and paving, 70% of the general fund is made up of those departments, and we certainly use every one of those services on a daily basis. So in the general fund, that's what you get for your taxes. In the general fund also, it's a very personal fund, of which 78% is for salaries and benefits. Moving to the water fund, it's no surprise that your revenues are paid for through your water bills. We are not asking for a water rate increase. Your bill for 2,000 gallons is still $17.83 as it has been in the past. Your water fund expenditures, 35% is for treating the water. When people say, well, the water doesn't cost anything, I assure you it does. Water maintenance, anybody that's been around a water leak understands the importance of maintenance. So that's about 70% of the water fund are just those 2 activities. Again, 37% comes for personnel and fringes, and operating is 31%. Sewer is just like water in that the customer service, customer charges are the main source of revenue for the fund. We are not asking for a sewer rate increase. That average 2,000 gallon bill is still $25.94 per month. Sewer maintenance and sewer treatment make up 75% of budget of those 2 of sewer fund. And as you can see, once again, personnel is the main driver for costs in the sewer fund. Electric fund's a little different because the majority cost in the electric fund is paying for wholesale power that we get from Santee Cooper. And 19% is to maintain the electric system. Let me move through this. I'm trying to get through because we've had so many other presentations tonight. One thing we'd like to talk about is we are asking for a 3.8 cent ad valorem tax increase. 48% of that 3.8 cents goes to salary. As we know, the retention and the hiring of employees is one of the most difficult things we are facing in Western North Carolina. So the majority of our request for this increase is for salary. In order to retain and hire folks, we're recommending a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for employees and another 2.5% for our career development program. We're having a considerable effort to try to retain and hire our law enforcement. In order to keep up with the Western North Carolina market, we recommend a starting rate for law enforcement officers of $47,000. Now, our newest fund, the Stormwater Fund, Jesse's going to talk about. He's done an amazing job of creating a 4-tier system. But that revenue would the tier bill on that would be $1.42 per year per resident. Excuse me, per home per month. Ready?
Thank you. So when we went into the beginning of this budget cycle, we were looking to kind of subsidize the cost of managing our stormwater management service with a stormwater fee, which is something that's been implemented throughout the state and throughout the nation. When we started this discussion, there was some concerns about whether or not this would disproportionately impact people of lower incomes. Unfortunately, the state legislature in North Carolina doesn't really allow us to base these fees on incomes. So what we were trying to do throughout this process was create a fee system and a fee structure that would kind of work its way through the mechanisms that are allowed by the state so that we could come up with that product, which is essentially a stormwater fee that collects the revenue that we're seeking without disproportionately impacting folks of lower incomes. And we did that by kind of changing the game up a little bit. And instead of basing our fee structures and our tier systems off of the amount of impervious surfaces that are located on properties, we categorize them based off of the size of the properties, using the logic that if you've got a greater size piece of property, you're going to have a greater impact. And that, as a metric, is specifically allowed for in the state statutes. So kind of taking Rob's lead here, we'll kind of move through this quickly. This is what we've kind of come up with, right? Now, we started this by realizing that we needed to reach a $200,000 gap in funding. So that's where we started with, and we worked backwards. On the chart that you see here, we've separated the residential stormwater fee schedule and the commercial stormwater fee schedule as it is separated in other municipalities throughout the state. The ERA range there, that's your estimated residential acreage. And so what this is an example of current property tax data where we've taken the acreage of each property, grouped them into different categories based off of how big those properties are. Those categories are sized based on the average of all of them, right? So we take all the properties in the town of Waynesville that are residential, and we remove a bunch of outliers, things that are, super huge, the one or two properties that are super huge, the one or two properties that are incredibly small, woodlands, that kind of thing, where there's not any risk of increased stormwater runoff. We remove those, and the average we get was 600 square feet less than a 0.7 of an acre. That 600 square feet is added on because that's the kind of industry standard for what you might not be able to find or measure being driveways or other impervious surfaces. One of the reasons why we're confident in this system rather than other systems is because in order to go through and accurately measure, as other folks have said that they've done, the amount of impervious surface on any given property is, for us at least, impossible. In order to go through and measure using our current GIS licenses or the public GIS domains that are offered to the county, would cost an incredible amount of money and time, and it's not very accurate. What you're doing when you do that is you're analyzing space based off of historic roster images of aerial footage, which will be dated as soon as it hits the web. Now, those aerial footages are only updated every 2 or 3 years anyway. You would have to recalculate every single time one of them is put out. That costs an incredible amount of money. So at this point, we were stuck with we need to kind of come up with a system that's not going to disproportionately impact people of lower incomes. And we also need to come up with a system that we're confident is applying this fee equitably without spending all of the cash on the measurement itself. Because that wouldn't work. We wouldn't come away with anything from that. So what we've done is, and the first block there you'll see is your ERA range. That's your equivalent residential acreage. That's the average. That's the tier categories that are based off of that average residential acreage in the town of Waynesville. The second category is your applied ERU. ERU is your estimated, your equivalent residential unit. And what we've done is we've made one ERU equal to $2.86, and then we multiply those ERUs through the range in a tier. The effect of that can be seen in the bottom commercial structure there. That was done by council direction, where at one of the budget meetings, it was kind of discussed that maybe higher industry, higher affected commercial properties ought to pay more in order to subsidize the costs that we face when all of that water comes off of, let's say, a giant parking lot into our stormwater system. The effect of charging the commercial, especially the much larger commercial properties, even more, is that we again see a lower cost to the people that we believe would have lower incomes. The monthly ERU is how much it would be charged monthly. The fee itself is going to be calculated once a year. That's the annual fee there. Essentially, that's just column 1 multiplied by 12 to get column 2. If you multiply some of these out, they may not be exact because the decimal points on these inside of the Excel sheet go on for a mile. So that was pointed out to me. It took me 17 decimal places out to do it to see if it was actually accurate, and it was. The last column isn't necessarily going to be in the fee schedule because this is going to change often. It's the affected properties. I wanted to include that to show you folks that that bottom ERU, that bottom tier on the residential range, is a large majority of all the properties in the town of Waynesville. The demonstration is intended to show that while we are introducing a new fee structure that is affecting property owners, a giant, significant portion of those properties, including the commercial properties, are going to pay the lowest tier. 608 properties that are commercial are only going to pay $34.30 a year. And 3,739 of those properties are gonna pay about $17.50, 15 cents. That's just here to demonstrate low impact on individuals that we believe would have lower means. The idea behind that logic is that if you own a big house, you might make more money. If you own a small house, it doesn't mean you make less money. But if you own a small house on a big piece of property, or a small house or a big house on a small piece of property, this will pick you up. The $200,000 that we're seeking to fund or seeking to gain through this program is about a third of the actual cost of the stormwater program. And a lot of that's getting chopped up. I think we're only actually relieving about $81,000 from the general fund, because in order to manage this going forward, we need to hire somebody to do that. And that's about a $60,000 a year. This is going to be calculated based off of the tax scroll data or the property tax card data that we will pull by policy once a year on a given date. So what's going to happen is I'm going to pull that data, or somebody in the town of Waynesville is going to pull that data on a specific date that's not determined yet. Most likely around September or October. The calculations are made then, and then it's applied on the tax bills that go out. It is not going to be a tax. However, the only way to kind of distribute this to property owners, the easiest way to do this, again, without spending a whole bunch of cash, is sending it out with that bill. We thought about doing this monthly. The problem with doing it monthly is that it goes to the utility bills. Utility bills are paid by tenants. Tenants typically make less money than the people that own the properties that they rent from. Going back into that philosophy of let's do this without affecting people of lower incomes.
So it's all property owners, not renters.
Yes.
correct?
What they do with those costs and how those costs affect tenants is up to them.
How are you differentiating between residential and commercial?
The tax cards that we get from the county are coded. Commercial, residential, woodland, there's a bunch of different categories. And they're pretty explicit. There's only like 6 or 7 of them. That's what I'm doing. This data is based off of the county. Now, there's a much more accurate way to do this, and there's a much cleaner way to do this that is far more expensive and takes a lot of time and constant amounts of paying attention, for lack of better words, right? If you want to go and measure every single piece of impervious surface or what might be considered a possible impervious surface, somebody adds on a driveway, somebody builds an extension onto their house, that's got to be measured. And the initial measurement has to be done, which is a vast project. And then you've got to redo that measurement every single year. I say that because I don't want anybody to think this is a perfect system, but it's as close as we can get to accomplishing the several different tasks that we were set out to accomplish on the front end. One of them being don't spend any money. The second one being don't charge people with lower incomes more than you charge other people proportionally.
How much do those measurement projects, those are contracts, right?
Yeah, I have no idea how much they cost. I know that the license that we have to run our ArcGIS program can't even we're not allowed through our license to do geospatial reference.
Jesse, you mentioned 1/3 of the total cost associated with the town managing stormwater would be covered
The
by
actual
this.
cost of that program is approximately $698,000, so approximately 700. I can't do mental math, so 200.
So it's costing the town and therefore residents $700,000 to deal with stormwater currently.
And it's gonna get, yes, and it will get more expensive as well, because we've got a lot of inflow and infiltration throughout the town that is leaking into our sewer plant, which in turn costs everything.
Could you talk about, some of the ways that this, revenue would be utilized?
It's gonna be essentially this revenue is gonna be used to do a couple things. One, pay the stormwater tech that we intend to hire. Two, subsidize the ad valorem tax costs that are going to be required to mitigate our inflow and infiltration issue. That's the big one for us. There's a ton of water that's flowing in to the from the stormwater system into the sewer system that needs to be mitigated. A perfect example is Main Street, downtown Main Street. Without performing all of the cameras and testing that's required to know for certain, we're pretty positive that there are hundreds of thousands of gallons of water flowing out of the stormwater system into the sewer system from Main Street. In order to repair, every time a giant rain event happens, in order to fix that, you can either slipstream those pipes, you can dig them up and replace them, or you can do nothing. All of those options are incredibly expensive.
And we know this is happening because our usage at the sewer plant goes up to like 1 million gallons when we have a huge.
The capacity of the sewer plant is 6 million gallons, and this is where part of the misnomer has happened when it comes to the reconstruction of the plant over the past several years. On most rain events, typically, or on any typical day, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, that we reach about 4 million gallons of treated water that runs through that plant, between 2 and 4 million. The plant is designed for 6. So saying that we're at capacity isn't necessarily true. However, we know that we've got a giant inflow and infiltration problem because those pipes exist or should exist in a separate system than our stormwater system does. And when it rains, that number of the gallons of treated water that run through that plant can sometimes peak at 9 million, which is bad. And it's expensive.
Because we're treating water that.
We're treating water that doesn't necessarily, it should be treated, sure, maybe by grass, but not a $29 million sewer plant. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we don't have to adopt this fee structure tonight, do we?
No, fee structure, the only thing that you have to adopt with your budget that you're sure about is your tax rate.
200,000.
And we don't even have to do that tonight.
Well, the reason I was saying that is because I had played with the numbers a little bit. You gave us.
I gave you the tool.
To do that. You've added a tier 5 for residential, which is good. I looked at having even a lower ERU for the first tier of residential customers and raising it just a little bit for the commercial customer. And I'd rather not vote on this. I'd like to see some other alternatives. I mean, if we looked at a 0.3 ERU for residential.
I would be cautious about doing anything that may cause the tier system to become disproportionate. So for instance, everything here is proportionally based off of half increments. If we begin changing anything that lies outside of that pattern, I would say that it could be argued arbitrary. This is all based off of math and it's all based off of a system. And if we begin introducing values that aren't proportionate throughout, there could be an argument that we're paying special attention to different tiers. I don't know how well that argument would be fleshed out, but I would caution against it.
That's something we need to look at. We could still increase the commercial, which would lessen the amount of the residential.
Yes.
And perhaps we could, I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. That's a legal question, I suppose, whether,
I don't know how nervous I should be about that, but I know when we create a system that's based off of certain variables and we begin changing them, it makes me nervous. But
this whole thing makes me nervous. I mean, you know, I'd much rather charge the tier 1 folks $10 a month rather than $18 for $17.
Was per year.
$17 a year.
I'm sorry, per year. That's a lot of money. You know, when we got rid of the vehicle tax, we were looking at getting rid of $15 a month.
$25 a year, I think is what
a year,
was, or
whatever. A year. I'm sorry, I keep saying per month, and I don't mean that. Anyway, again, I would like to look at it a little further before we actually vote on.
We can do that.
Well, we already know how you're gonna vote, Chuck.
No, this is not in the budget.
Yeah, it is in the
The
budget.
fee schedule's
Actually,
adopted.
not. This is the first time I've seen it. It's not in the budget. It was, I mean, it's presented to us today, yes. But we can change the fee schedule anytime we want to. And we don't have to vote on this.
Right.
Okay, we don't have to vote on any of the fee schedules.
Right.
Actually, as long as we collect enough money for the revenue that we have in our budget.
You have to pass the fee schedule in order to pass the budget. They change the fee schedule at any time, but you must adopt tax rate and fee schedule and capital improvement. To adopt.
And that has to be done by the
Tax
28th.
rate is the only.
31.
Or- And we can approve a budget, but not a tax rate.
Yes, you can amend that fee schedule. You could adopt the whole budget right now and then amend that fee schedule tomorrow. Or 2 days from now, following the proper notification.
But
of
the only
special
thing that
call.
we cannot change once it's been adopted is the tax rate.
The tax rate cannot change.
The fee
And we
schedule-
do not
Once you
have-
adopt a tax rate, you may not, I don't know why the general session said that may not. You may adopt a budget, but you've got until 11/59 on June 30th. to adopt the tax. So, this concludes the staff presentation.
It's big news.
When you invite the
10
public.
minutes in on June,
public.
29th. But the staff is at your, at your will, we can help you.
Robin, I've got just one quick question because I was making notes as you were doing your presentation. On the electric fund,
I forgot to mention,
is there any, if no increase, because I know it's, water fund. no
there is a
increase.
7% increase in electric rates to make up for $1,050,000 capital improvement plan that involves 3 contracts. And I apologize. As soon as I sat down, I remembered, I forgot to even mention it.
The biggest one was Avenue.
Allison Acres on the side and the completion of the Walnut Street Russ Avenue improvement. Department of Transportation.
Thank you.
And I apologize for getting an entire fund.
That is still less than what Progress or Duke Energy is raising rate.
Okay, if there's no
They asked
further
for
questions
17.
for Rob, I'm going to open it up to the public. Okay? Okay, if there's anyone who wants to speak concerning the budget, there'll be like a 3-minute time limit, which John Turner will keep. But we'll open it up right now. If anyone out in the audience here wants to speak concerning this budget, you're welcome. Just raise your hand. Okay, if no one wants to speak concerning the budget,
I'll make a motion to
I'll turn
close
it back
public.
over to the board
Right.
here.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, got a motion to close. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, show like sign. Okay, discussion from the board. Okay, so on this end, Anthony, have any discussion?
I think John's going to cover a couple of things that I was going to do, so I'm going to refer to John since I
Okay,
difficulty
put all the pressure on John.
No, there's a couple of things that we need to do, and I do seriously want to talk about the police again.
We have a slide.
Okay,
If you like, we'll put the slide.
Yes,
on the screen
please.
for you. We thought you might talk about that. so we prepared
imagine that.
one.
Yes. Thank you. As you so eloquently stated at the beginning, there are pressures on our police department and other areas are beginning to offer more than our base salary, which is impacting our ability to maintain the great police force that we have.
There you are.
Right.
A smorgasbord.
Smorgasbord. So currently we're doing a 47,000.
Yes, sir.
That would require a new tax rate or an increase of 3.78. Yeah. If we did 47,250, that would bring us to 338.8, 47,500 be 39.8. And we know where I stand on this is I would like the full 48,000, which would be a 4% increase, 4% increase, but I know I don't have the full. So I'm asking for some kind of compromise to get them. I know they're not going to get 48, but somewhere between 47 and 48. That's where I stand.
I'm right there with you. I've had a number of conversations with the assistant chief and chief, and so I would love to get to 48. I do. I kind of struggled with what it will take to get there this year. I think long term, in the short term, we should be shooting for 49. So that would be, I am comfortable with the progress to 47 or thereabouts this year, with the express understanding that we would look to next year to go all the way to 49. That would be my goal.
That's all I had, sir. There we go. That's all.
So, when we started this, I said that none of us wanted to raise the tax rate. And I stand by that even after going through this process. And I will say that this process has been more involved than any budget process that I've been involved with in the 9 years. This is, I guess, my 9th budget, and this is the most comprehensive look at how the town brings in money and spends money that I can recall. And I also talked about needs versus wants. It's plain to see that anybody who's looking at this budget and the needs that the town is, that there are things we need, and I'm differentiating between wants, okay, needs that are essential to maintaining the high level of service that this community deserves. Just as clear in that is the fact that the amount of revenue that we receive under the current tax rate is insufficient to pay for the things that are essential. There are 2 ways to bridge that gap. We can cut spending or increase revenue. I am completely confident that our staff has done everything they can to rein in spending and make cuts where possible. And so therefore we have one option, and that is to raise the tax rate. Our 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt, said, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing. And we have been presented with a budget that raises the tax rate by 3.78 cents, and we don't have to do that. We can choose to do nothing, leave the tax rate as it is, and um, is that the right thing? And so there are costs. One of the perspectives that I had early on is there are costs to our residents when we undertake something like this. It's going to make it difficult. The amount of money that they pay in taxes every month is going to increase. And I am cognizant of that. But I also got to thinking about what happens if we don't raise the revenue that's needed to pay for these essential items. For example, with our fire department, if we do nothing, leave the tax rate as it is, we don't hire 4 additional firefighters, which is half of the 8 that were recommended back in 2016 when we hired the 8. Okay. And oh, by the way, that's when they were doing 1,000 less calls per year than they are doing currently. We won't be able to, our fire department won't be able to operate 3-person, 3-person engine teams 24 hours a day. Instead, we'll continue to have 3-person engines during the peak hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm not sure that emergencies will abide by that schedule. So we won't make progress towards meeting the NFPA standard 1710, which lays at the minimum staffing standards. Right now, it's a standard. OSHA has taken steps and is on the cusp of making that a law rather than a standard. Another thing our fire department won't be able to do, they won't be able to split 2-person personnel off into a smaller medical response vehicle while leaving 1 person on their larger engine. That would help when they're busy or going to an area where they can't get the larger engine. This would also take the load off of some of the larger engines, and boy, don't we know how much those larger engines cost. And last but certainly not least, we won't be able to increase the safety and efficiency of the department so our personnel can better serve the residents of Waynesville and beyond. That's just the fire department. What about the WPD? So over the last few years, the PD has lost 3 officers to the Haywood County Sheriff's Office. In addition, we lost 3, 1 each to the Silva PD, Asheville PD, and probation, parole. Each of those were PO3s or higher. We know this is going to continue if we don't increase their starting salary. So our HR director estimated that to replace an officer, it costs the taxpayers of this community 1.5 times the annual salary. Here's what that means in dollar figures. The PO1, who has 1 to 2 years of experience, has a salary of approximately $42,136. The cost to replace that PO1 is $63,204. Senior PO, 6 years of experience, costs $73,165. Master PO, 12 years of experience, $84,699 to replace them. I did the math to calculate the cost of the 6 officers we lost recently, And that works out to be $431,000. $500,000 the taxpayers of this community have spent to replace 6 officers. So there's lots to be enthusiastic about in that budget. We've need to replace aging equipment down at the rec center, and lots of other things. There's one more thing that I want to highlight, and this will not happen if we do nothing. Every fall, leaves get piled up on the roadways far longer than they should be. I guarantee you, every single one of us has gotten a call about, when are you going to come pick up my leaves? So this budget, and it's not just an aesthetic issue, it's a safety issue for cars and pedestrians. So my message to all of you is that there are costs to not doing something. And I think the benefits of increasing the tax rate as proposed far outweigh the costs. And I would hope that all of us could get behind that.
Chuck?
I've said I feel about this several times. We're raising electric rates on our customers by 7%. That's a lot of money. We're assessing a stormwater fee. And again, the low and middle income folks, the folks on fixed incomes, the folks that really can't afford this tax increase are the ones that are going to be paying this. I mean, I can afford it. We can all afford it here. But there's plenty of people in the town of Waynesville who can't afford this. And I would rather wait until next year with the revaluation year, hope that some of the property values might go up on some of the commercial properties and things might stabilize a little better, so that we could do what we need to do without raising the taxes. So there are things in this budget, and I hope and I know that you're planning to pass it. There's as far as our police department goes, we have increased the overtime pay by $56,000 for this year's budget. The idea behind raising the salaries is that we would be at full employment and we would not need to use overtime. But the overtime right now is it will be 233,000 almost in the new budget. We need to do something about that. We need to collect money from the folks who the police department serves in overtime pay. Those are things we can work on. And again, what I'm hoping is that with this budget, that the police department will be at full staff, and they've been at full staff this past year, at least on one occasion. Hopefully they will be that way again, and we can eliminate some of this overtime pay in the coming years. But again, as I told you, I'm not going to vote for this budget. The other thing I am concerned about, and I still would like us to look at the stormwater fee schedule. I think we can do a little better on that with the smaller properties. And I mean, if you adopt it, that's fine. It's not fine, but you can adopt it. But I would like to take another look at it. I think Anthony, I hope I can get some of your help on that. Anyway, that's
we can go back and look at a fee schedule, with that and amend that at any time. So doing that, which shouldn't be a problem.
Right, and these are hard choices that you're making. And I appreciate the civil discussion that we had.
Julie?
Nobody appreciates all the employees and what we offer to our citizens more than I do. And this has been extremely difficult for me. I was willing to, go up to 2.5 tax increase. We're well above that at this point. And with what's going on in the United States of America, in our country, our people are suffering. Citizens are suffering, everyone. And as Chuck pointed out, the 7% increase on the electric fund, introducing a new stormwater fee, we just seem to be handing it to our citizens, and I don't think they can afford it. So I will not be voting as well as Chuck with this the increase that you guys are requesting. So.
Okay. Then my thought is I'm concerned about, the fire department having enough folks to be able, when you have an emergency, to have enough people to show up to put your fire out. That's one of my concern is. And by not adding 2 firefighters on July 1, and then adding the other 2 firefighters in January, I think we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't do that, because you don't have the volunteers that you had back 20 years ago. You had more volunteers running over you going to the fire. Now you have to be certified to be even a volunteer fireman now. So you got to go to school to be a volunteer fireman. So how many is going to go to school and get a degree and not get paid? I mean, they do that to be firemen. So now we're having that problem, not having enough folks to cover, when we have a fire call or emergency call, EMS, where they go out before they do. So that is my feel there. I like to say, we were supposedly supposed to have 8 by now, and now we're looking at adding 4, and so we got to do that. I mean, there's no way around that. The public out there deserve the service. That's what they pay for taxis for. Is whenever they have an emergency, to have the fire and police both to show up. So you got to pay these guys to get them, to stay here and show up. So my spiel is, that we got to do it, to maintain the safety of the public, that we're supposed to be here representing the citizens out here to represent them. So I can, and I can go above what I said I would go above, but I can do that much. So you guys,
Yours was 3 point,
was it 3.78?
3.8.
3.8 was where
3.8.
That was where bargaining. So 3.8.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's given a medium. That's taking the police department from 42,000 to 47,000. So I mean, that's definitely over and above the medium that they are getting paid now. So
That's also making sure that that's also making sure that all of our employees are getting the 2.5% COLA and the 2.5%.
Yeah, and that also is my other concern too, the other employees. What are you going to do about the other employees? You've got to be fair to public works. You've got to be fair to the water department, to wastewater treatment plant. All departments, deserve, a wage that they can, provide for their families, so I mean, you can't keep them down below poverty all the time, you got to do something about it. So that's my spiel.
So, before we settle, Ditsy, can you show that? So, at our,
You ran out.
at the Downtown Waynesville Association, forum last week, several of the, folks in the audience, complained about our trash cans. And I know we have talked about trash cans maybe, as long as I've been here. And it's always next year. So, I have a proposal. So I wanted to, this is the trash can right across the street here. Obviously, it looks shabby and.
It's not even shabby
It's like
chic.
the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
And there are many others just like that all up and down Main Street. So, spoke with Jesse and there are 18 of these cans.
Plus or minus.
Okay, so give or take 18 cans. And there are also 10 cans in, not 10 cans, the number 10
Real kids,
cans
real garbage
that,
cans.
need to be replaced in Hazel. So what I would propose, instead of increasing the tax rate by, 0.378 cents, is that we increase the tax rate by 0.380. And that would takes the, tax rate to 3.79. I'm sorry, 47.9 cents per 100,000. Now, also am concerned about what that's gonna do. Chuck raises a very good point. And so I went and calculated what that would do, what that 0.2 cent increase above what we are talking about, which is less than 1/4 cent. Okay. What that would do to the average tax bill. And if your home is valued at $250,000, you would pay an extra $5 per year or 42 cents per month. If your house is valued at $150,000, you would pay $3 a year or 25 cents per month. So my request is that instead of setting the tax rate at 47.7 cents, that we'd set it at 47.9 cents and use that extra $30,000 or so to replace all the cans on Main Street and all the cans in Hazelwood.
Let me ask you something. Would that not need to come from the, well, never mind.
Beth, how does that make you feel?
Can we look at getting those changed out with trash cans that have recyclables as well?
When I did the count, John, I didn't tell you this, but, when I was walking, so first I called Public Works to get a number. The number that I got was close to what I counted. Doing it quickly, I noticed that there was only like 3 or 4 recycling cans on Main Street, which is why when we were talking, I inflated those numbers to account for adding recycle cans adjacent to many of the factories that don't exist currently. So the numbers that I gave you, which were initially 30 and 40, to kind of run them out through the side street in Hazelwood, and that map was included.
Okay. you and I talked about the cans that are on the new bump outs.
Yes,
Are those the kinds of cans that you're talking about?
yes. They look good, and I've been getting a lot of positive feedback about the ease of use, specifically emptying them and how quickly they can do that. And also what I call the tippability. And tip them over.
Cost between $900 to $1,200 a piece.
I think those were 11, and if you order 3, the order price. I don't know how low they go if you order more.
Probably get a discount by ordering 30 volume.
I wouldn't expect the discount to go so low that it would significantly impact price.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Okay. I could do that as long as you don't go over 4 cents.
no,
I can't do that.
It's
I think
not-
it's right at our
You do that to the
3.8
public.
cents.
it's right.
It's the 3.8 that you had,
3.8.
that you had agreed upon.
Yeah.
But that's not getting the police officers an additional, it would just be getting them to 47.
It's 47, yeah.
Yes.
47, yeah. 47,000 in the 4 or 5.
4 or 5 fires, yes.
and the
Leaf
new
truck,
equipment down at,
leaf truck, and don't forget the police vest.
yeah,
The leaf truck and the,
and the match to hire 2 new officers, correct?
Correct.
and also the cardio,
Equipment at the,
cardio
Yep.
equipment, yeah.
and the time and attendance system, which is very much needed.
And the meter reading.
That's right.
And the meter reading
That's in
equipment.
the water.
And these are not wants, these are needs.
These are needs, this ain't wants, these are needs. I mean, if we want to get back into the situation like we did with our citizens about their, getting their bills on late, charge and all that kind of stuff, you know, for the utilities and stuff, and this will help verify that, having
And again,
the new system.
something like 70% of our budget is for salaries and wages.
Salaries and wages, yeah.
And we have to invest in our employees.
I could go for the employees. Our employees mean a lot.
Just like the cost is going up for everybody else, the cost of living is going up for our employees as well. So
Yeah.
by not giving them a cost of living increase, it's actually giving them a decrease in pay.
No, our employees are important and
We've spent probably, what now, 15 hours on this budget?
oh yeah, we spent a lot of time. All right, give me some.
I feel awful having, I always look over to you, Rob.
Well, I'm
Trying to put it off.
stating this, if you stand.
Trying to put it off on John.
Yeah, well,
Cross my ties or anything.
what we need to do is do the tax rate and the budget.
But you, if you're finished with your discussion, but you do take a motion to adopt the 24-25 operating capital budget. And we set a tax rate of 4.79 and to adopt the user fee schedule. And make that
4.79.
47.
Okay. Let's make sure we get,
I'm short on decimal points.
that's okay, let's,
As many budgets as you've had to run, I'm surprised that you didn't run out for now.
Well, we did.
yeah, let's,
They've done a lot of work.
I want to make sure that I get this very specific because we cannot change the tax rate once it's passed. So the tax rate that we would need to have is 47.9. I'll make a motion that we accept the budget as presented by staff with the inclusion of the the additional trash cans are $30,000 and set the tax rate at 47.9 cents per 100.
Second.
Got a second, John. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
No,
Okay. Three. Close.
We have budget.
End of the budget.
and we're not here on June 30th at midnight.
Okay.
I really want to take this, I really want to say I appreciate all the input that Julia and Chuck gave to. I want to thank Julia and Chuck for the input that they had to the budget, even though they couldn't vote for it. I appreciate that.
This is the second reading.
I'm doing.
Because the great litany. The presentation by
Employees
staff
are very, very
at the
important.
last
If you don't have the employees out there to
meeting.
do the service, then, you're gonna have complaints, from the public out there that, and 2 firemen to show up to put my fire out. That don't work. Okay, we'll move on. I've got another public hearing. And so I asked for a motion to open the public hearing to consider a tax amendment related to general corrections and updates, including protest petitions, tree preservation, and definition of townhomes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, got a motion?
Second.
Second, John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Miss Olga, where's my little Miss Olga?
Good evening. This is the public hearing to consider text amendment to general corrections to the ordinance to include some 160D updates as suggested by our town attorney, Ms. Martha Bradley, to eliminate protest petitions and to strengthen our definitions such as townhomes to closely align with the building code and to also strengthen our tree preservation and landscaping ordinance. Okay. First couple of changes are pretty straightforward. For example, we are eliminating reference to petition, and if the planning board makes a negative recommendation to the town council for text or map amendments, we have a new language as written by Ms. Martha for us. I will read it verbatim. So for negative recommendation, review by the town council shall conduct a public hearing and receive public input on the proposed amendment within a reasonable time following the public hearing before the planning board. If the planning board makes a negative recommendation, the petitioner may, within 30 days after written notification of the planning board's decision and no less than 24 hours prior to the public hearing scheduled before the town council, request a continuance of the town council hearing to revise the application to address matters raised by the planning board. And the decisions by the town council shall be by a majority vote. So this is just clarifying the process in accordance with the state statutes.
The statute allowing for protest petitions was repealed, and we did not update our ordinances accordingly, so this just brings us into line with the state statute.
Statute for protest petitions were repealed, Martha,
Yeah,
actually, as far as back as 2015. We just did not catch that. So that was quite a bit, no reference. The second general correction is to align the definition of townhomes with NC building code, and this is something that was recommended by our planning board and our planning board attorney. So the definition stands as follows. Townhome, a single-family dwelling unit constructed in a group of 2 or more attached units separated by the property lines in which each unit extends from foundation to roof and with a yard or public way on no less than 2 sides. The only difference between the building code and this definition is building code states it's 3 or more attached units. Our planning board attorney suggested 2 because that just, it works for townhomes. There are townhome development to just have 2 units with a deeded land or easements to them, and it's still a townhome development in a nutshell. So that's the only difference. And the last change that we have is strengthening our landscape and tree preservation ordinance. The planning board held a public hearing in April, and they recommended unanimously all these text amendments. As for this ordinance specifically, for this text amendment, they asked us to seek additional feedback to professionals such as landscape architects, and we did reach out and to several people. Bill Skelton, our horticulture specialist with the town, Christine O'Brien with Haywood Waterways, Dwayne Van Hook, District Director for Haywood Soil and Water Conservation District, and Emily Clark, the owner of the Clark Lenin Architects. She's a landscape architect. To make sure that our proposed language makes sense and it's not proposing any drastic changes that would take the land from the property owners. This update was triggered by citizens' feedback. Every time we have projects, especially the larger ones, we hear a lot of feedback. The trees are going down, it looks bare. Is there any way to preserve those trees? As our ordinance currently stands, we do have some provisions. We're not doing anything. But at this point, there are encouragements. It's an encouragement and not enough for developers to actually proceed. And I haven't seen them acting on these encouragements in my time here. So we are just doing some tweaks to strengthen it where some things will be required. For example, to save 5% of the existing vegetation. How do we define what to save? And we want to make sure also we are not taking a lot of extra land from developments, because we are already requiring a landscaping plan with the street trees. We require stormwater amenities. We require civic space. So we're very careful. The number that we're going to present was very calculated. So with that being said, I would like to just spend a few minutes to show what we currently have in the ordinance, just to show you what we already have and for our tree preservation. For example, the minimum number of parking spaces required may be adjusted by the administrator when it has been determined that the reductions are necessary to preserve a healthy tree or trees with a 12-inch or greater diameter at breast height. This is one thing that we as administrators have an option to do. We had not had this request yet. Now for civic space, we have several categories of civic space, including dog park, square, green, and everywhere the trees are expected as part of this civic spaces. So landscape shall consist of paths, lawns, and trees, shade areas. So that's something that actually we look for in the plans. Chapter 8, tree protection. The use of existing trees or shrubs to satisfy the landscape requirement of this chapter is expected. Again, expected is the key word, not required. And then under B is the town expects new development from the protection of trees and existing vegetation to be creative in design and placement of buildings, structures, parking, and other impervious surfaces as to preserve natural features and to complement the existing property when practical. We also have tree credits for preservation of existing trees, and I'm not going to go in detail, but they do exist. The bigger the tree, developer of the tree, the more credit the developer can get. The credit is due where the compliance is due, so they can't claim a credit for street trees if they're trying to preserve the back tree. They have to be around the area where the trees. So the expectation is if the tree that was preserved dies within 24 months, it's going to be replaced. And then tree topping. Tree topping and shearing shall be prohibited on all trees on public property. So, by example, when protection during surveying, when tree greater than 12 inches in diameter, breast height, located on public property or within a required tree protection area shall be removed for the purpose of surveying without an approval from the administrator. And again,
Good. Could you go back 2 slides? I had a question, one more. So in your, on your slide, it shows 1 tree, but in our packet, it shows 2 trees, 4 trees, 5 trees, 6 trees.
this will be, so this is existing provision. Then with the red changes.
Okay.
So I just want to go over what we have right now.
Gotcha.
So to give an idea that we already have tree preservation and what we have currently, which is very minor, honestly, and more encouraging. Again, when there is construction, the tree is supposed to be protected with barricades and tree, along the tree drip line, which is, the drip line is where the branches extend down and reduce the depth. And now, in red, that's where it starts, we're gonna transition to the proposed changes as recommended by the planning board and with the consultation of the landscape professionals that I mentioned earlier. So the town expects new development through the protection of trees and existing vegetation to be creative in design and of buildings, structures, parking, and other impervious surfaces, as to preserve natural features and to complement the existing topography when practical. That is already in the ordinance. The addition is additionally, major subdivisions and major site plans shall preserve 5% of the existing trees on site. Tree preservation areas, native species with no obvious damage or decline, with adequate protection measures from construction activities shall be shown on the landscape plan. Tree preservation can be counted towards the required buffers, screens, and street trees as specified in the section 8.3.1C, which will be our next section. First of all, this 5% number is a calculated number that was through the consultation with our planning board attorney, Ron Smith. It said 5%, you probably fine. If you do more, it may be taken because it's already so much required from the bigger development. Major subdivisions, as you probably know, as a reminder, 8 units or more, or any number of units if they're asking for public utilities, dedication to public right of ways, or creating any public roads. So this will be required. And we do want to make sure that the native species with no obvious damage or decline. And then another change is to strengthen the credit. Not only we require developer to preserve 5% of the existing vegetation, the trees, we want to give a stronger incentive for them to not take out the trees they already have. For example, instead of taking out good mature tree, let's say of 18 inches, we can give you a credit, let's say for 5 trees. And that may be enough incentive for them to keep those areas undisturbed, to give them enough incentive to push them that direction. Another change is to require type B buffer yard for major subdivisions of 15 or more units and any special use permits in all districts. As a reminder, we did pass the civic space tiers when we upped the percentages, and this number is a second tier for civic space. That's when we start increasing the required the required acreage from 5% of site to 10% for civic space. So planning board wanted to keep these tiers in line, and they want to have this buffer. So this buffer would help the neighbors who are facing this development. And type B buffer is a medium density screen for visual separation. That's exactly what the purpose of it. So type A buffer is all year round, very safe buffer. So we did not recommend that. And then we have type C buffer, which is just a planting strip. So type B is this golden middle where we can feel, it's not putting too much on the developer, but it also helps people who usually get holes, or it looks bare, I would like a separation from this development. So type B buffer, there are several options for it. It will be semi-opaque, no more than 10% openings. It will consist of shrubs, canopy trees, some evergreens, and the depth is between 10 and 20 feet. And the trees should achieve their maturity within 2 years, usually. So the planning board felt like 15 number of units, which coincides with the second tier of civic space, would be adequate for this purpose. And the last change is update the definition of a tree caliper. We have a definition right now, but in doing this work, we also looked at the model tree preservation ordinance by the North Carolina Forest Service, and their definition of a caliper stands as the diameter measurement of a tree trunk taken 6 inches above the ground for trees up to including 4 inches caliper size and 12 inches above the ground for trees exceeding 4 inches caliper size. So the picture is not matching definition, just gives you an idea. The bigger the tree, the higher you would measure for it. And this is from the model ordinance. With that, staff submits that the proposed changes as recommended by the planning board, and the planning board report and recommendation is attached to your agenda. They are consistent with the comprehensive plan goals number 1 and 3. Goal number 1, to continue to promote smart growth principles in land use planning and zoning, to encourage infill, mixed use and context-sensitive development, to promote conservation design to preserve important natural resources, to reinforce the unique character of Waynesville. Goal number 3 is to protect and enhance natural resources, to protect and enhance water quality in forests, to protect rural lands, iconic views, and mountain vistas. And the last picture that I would like to show you is, this is actually in Hendersonville area, about from where I live. There's a construction going around their post office. That's a tree protection area. That's how they move usually. A developer saving some trees, they would section them off with wood pine. So there are similar provisions in the areas around that. Good to staff report.
Anybody have any further questions for?
I'll make a motion to close public
You have
hearing.
to invite the
Well,
public.
Oh,
to speak.
sorry.
I gotta ask the public first.
Sorry.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience like to speak concerning this amendment to the budget? I mean, to the budget. I got that budget on the brain.
Oh, land development standard.
Yeah, I got that on the brain. Anyone like to speak concerning this ordinance change?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
close public hearing, Mayor.
Second.
All right, got a motion to close public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so like sign. Okay, now you can make your suggestions, or you want to amend it, or you want to go with it. You got to pass the first motion for the consistent.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to find that the ordinance is consistent with the 2035 comprehensive plan, and that it is in the reasonable and in the public interest, and that it continues to promote smart growth principles in land use planning and zonings, promotes conservation design to preserve important natural resources, and it protects and enhances Waynesville's natural resources, and that it protects and enhances water quality in forests.
Okay, got a motion?
Second.
Second, Drew. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Val.
And I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented.
Second.
All right, got a motion. Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So like sign. Okay, thank you, dear. You always do a great job.
Good
Okay,
evening.
We move on to revisions to our charter and code of ordinance to reflect change in the governing body's name. Our town attorney is going to be on this one. Goodness, town attorney.
Let's have a motion to open the public. hearing.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
This is a public hearing.
It is.
It's another.
I thought we were done.
No.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I promise that this will be the shortest presentation you hear all evening, mostly because I'm not sure my voice will hold out. Last year, you adopted a new name for yourselves, styling yourselves a town council, and therefore each member a council member. At the same time that I discovered the protest petition statute been repealed in the conditional district process, hearing process, there were references to the board, meaning this body, but this body is no longer a board, it is a council. And in that section, there are also references to when zoning decisions are referred to other bodies appointed by this board, or other bodies appointed by this body, which are still called the board, leading to some conflicting and inconsistent language that I can't ignore once I see it, much to my husband's chagrin. So I then did a quick search of the entire Code of Ordinances, Charter, and Land Development Standards and discovered that there were roughly 300 references to various iterations of Board of Aldermen, Alderman, Board, etc. And felt that if we're going to fix some of them, we got to fix all of them because that just creates even more inconsistency. So you have 92 pages of ordinances which need to be revised to correct the name of this body, to make sure that there are no inconsistencies with, particularly with where there are multiple layers of board approval in the zoning arena, where things go through either the planning board or the zoning board to make sure that people like me don't make hay where there's no sun. So that's the presentation. I hope we'll approve it without any.
You need anything other than a motion to adopt?
Well, we have
Well, you have
to have a
to
public hearing.
open the
Oh, I'm
public.
sorry.
Well, no, we're in a public hearing. You need to take public comment if
Okay,
there
well,
is
we'll do
any,
that.
and then you just close it and adopt the
We don't
charter
need to
as
make any.
presented. Correct. You do not have to make a consistency statement because you are not changing any of the substance of the zoning ordinance, just the names of this body.
Okay. Does anyone in the public want to speak concerning us legally changing our name to councilman instead of Dollar? That's what it about amounts to. I didn't think so. So,
I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I move we adopt the proposed ordinance amending the town's charter and code of ordinance to reflect the governing body's direction.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Long night. All right, we move on to new business and, Rob, yeah, I'll turn that one to you about the access road sewer.
In looking at the project, at this point, your staff recommends that you reject this and allow us to rebid it.
Okay. We need a motion to.
I'll make a motion to reject the bid.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
That was short and sweet.
All right. Annual renewal of terms and boards.
I'm ready to
Commission
make a
members.
motion on that if you'd like me to.
Absolutely.
Okay. I move that we dispense with interviewing any of the applicants for the board, planning board, zoning board of adjustment, ABC board, and Waynesville Housing Authority, and that we appoint all renewing applicants to serve another term on their respective boards.
So you don't need,
Second.
you're saying you don't need to review it for them.
We've already interviewed them once.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, you got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we renew all of, that takes care of several there, don't it? Communication staff, you know,
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor.
you wore out, ain't you?
Yes, sir.
My boss said wore out. Town attorney, do you have anything else to add to?
I do not.
Okay. Communication from, mayor to council. Chuck, you have anything?
No, sir.
Julia?
No, sir.
Anthony?
No, sir.
John? No, sir. Okay, I'll catch you up on some stuff then. I got a call today from our head inspector, David Kelly. You might help me out on that if I need it, yeah. Oh, good. But, so the phone calls that you've been getting concerning the Sutton property up there, he has talked with her, individually with the Suttons. He's also talked with their attorneys, and he's also talked with, they're listing it through a real estate to sell. They've come to an agreement that it's will all have to be sold. But David has also let them know that they're on a 30-day time clock now. So he started them on a 30-day that something has to be done up there to show that they're, destructing that building that is falling in up there. So if anyone asks you any questions, we have got the ball rolling on it. He put them on a 30-day clock. Am I correct? You want anything to add to that? Oh, yeah. He's had to reach out to several. I think there's only one of us sick in the hospital or something like that. He told me. Yeah, but he did speak with all their attorneys, and also with the real estate folks that are handling it, and told them that either way, in 30 days, there has to be some kind of tearing this building down, or we will go back and it'll come before us about, what do you call it? Condemning it. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No,
Well,
thanks everyone for all
Is
their work.
it just the part of the property that has that caved in building or?
All of it's gonna be cleaned up.
There's about 4 parcels.
Yeah, all of it's involved in
And
it.
5 or 6 landowners right now.
Gary, I know that y'all talked about that back when my mom was on board.
It goes way back, don't it?
It's a long time coming.
Yeah, I've been turning the heat up on this too, I've been getting the heat on me. But,
That's gonna change the view on South Main dramatically.
yeah, but David's doing a great job. He gave them every time in the world to do this. But, they did get in arguments and fuss over whatever that, so it's come to a point that we have to do something about it, so that's what we're doing. We put it on time clock to have them, either tear it down or we'll condemn it, from there. I'll leave anything out. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have, and, if anyone would like to entertain a motion, we adjourn. I appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Chuck won.
This has been a.
Chuck won.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? I don't think anybody's going to oppose.